Hello, and welcome to The Wave from Ocean Reef, a podcast about the flow of life today and how you and I might ride with or swim against it. I'm Dan Meyer, Chaplain-in-Residence at the beautiful Ocean Reef community in Key Largo, Florida, and here's The Wave for today. In May 1897, a report circulated among the journalistic community in America that the famous author Mark Twain was dead or dying. Hearing of this, the very much still alive humorist wrote to a reporter from his domicile in London. He said, "The report of my death was an exaggeration." The same might be said of the oft-repeated rumors that religious influence in America is on its deathbed. Here on the eve of Passover and the verge of Holy Week, I dedicate this episode to the representation of an article that appeared last week in the Chicago Tribune. It was penned by my close friend, Mike Woodruff, senior pastor of Christ Church, Lake Forest. Mike writes this: "It wasn't quite a where were you when moment, but almost. I'm talking about Richard Dawkins, the world's most famous atheist, announcing that he'd become a cultural Christian. Initially, I was confused," says Mike. Dawkins? A Christian? Then I realized what he was saying. The Oxford professor wasn't embracing faith. He was joining the parade of secular people acknowledging that much of what's right about the West depends upon a flourishing church. If his pivot surprises you, you need to understand three things. First, secularism is stumbling. The secular mindset that emerged from the Enlightenment, the belief that religion would fade while science delivered heaven on earth, has failed. Though most of us love Novocaine, iPhones, DoorDash, and sushi, in the end, it's not enough. There are aspects of secularism we should all applaud, but people who are defined by it are disproportionately lonely, anxious, and unhappy. Secularism is holding its own in Ivy League faculty lounges, but if it were a stock, Warren Buffett would have sold it years ago. Secondly, faith is surviving. A recently released study from the Pew Research Center shows that while church and synagogue attendance is down, the decline is mostly among those whose belief was already thin. In fact, robust faith remains strong. Bible sales are up. Men are coming back to church. Catholics are opting for the Latin Mass. Public intellectual Jordan Peterson's lectures now sound more like sermons than like TED Talks. And Gen Z? Well, instead of following the no gods, no masters rhetoric of their millennial predecessors, they're turning mystical. They're embracing stained glass and reading C.S. Lewis. As author G.K. Chesterton noted, on 5 occasions in history, the church has gone to the dogs, but on each occasion, it was the dogs that died. In the early 1950s, sociologist Will Herberg argued that just as a bouquet of flowers wilts because the flowers have been cut from their roots, societies that drift from their moral foundations also fade. This is called the cut flower theory. Founding Father John Adams said as much in 1798 when he wrote, and I quote, "Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It's wholly inadequate to the government of any other." The about-face of Richard Dawkins is part of a trend of people now replacing the idea that people will be good without God with the cut flower theory. Recently, Jonathan Rauch, a self-described liberal atheist, called his earlier Atlantic piece celebrating the fate of religion, I quote, "the dumbest thing I ever wrote," unquote. In his recently released book, Cross Purposes, he argues that virtues and values without religious conviction are just not holding up. Douglas Murray, the snarky British atheist, now agrees with Rausch and Peterson that healthy faith is a must-have for a healthy society. Historian Tom Holland and feminist Louise Perry are giving church another try. And Ayaan Hirsi Ali, the Dutch politician turned American activist, Niall Ferguson, a distinguished British academic, and Irish poet and activist Paul Kingsnorth all recently announced that they'd been baptized. What does this mean? Well, none of it means that secularism is disappearing. There will always be some who believe that with more education and the next whiz-bang advancement, human nature will right itself. And there will also be those who are very religious about their atheism. But something new is afoot. The tectonic plates of popular philosophy are shifting. This is Dan Meyer speaking again now. But if you show up to the chapel one of these days, or you join us for some of the programs that we offer during the week, you won't be aligning yourself with a quaint but dead or dying tradition. You will be leaning toward the foundations of vital culture and the wave of the future. No exaggeration. That's today's wave from Ocean Reef. If you know of others who might appreciate this sort of content, I hope you'll pass it along or encourage them to find me on Spotify, Apple, or other podcast outlets. Until next time, I'm Dan Meyer, hoping that the flow of life is good for you.